Casting, and very soon we will be live. And now we are, so I say hello everyone and welcome to Adventure on So Many Levels. We are playing Root, the role-playing game from Magpie Games. Which
Yay!
I am also sending out a tweet right now to say that we're going live. Sometimes I do that before starting the stream. I'm Christiana Ellis, and I'm the Dungeon Master. Our players tonight, Paul Weimer as Arbin Ironwing,
No time for noodles this time.
Nobilis as Lancelot Vint,
Hi there.
Jason Banks as Clem Sparrow,
Hello, guys.
David Archambault as Nigel Farnboot,
We're going to need a bigger noodle.
and Lee Burdett as Peppa Pika.
Hello! We're gonna need sneaky noodles this time.
Whoa, sneaky noodles. Bigger noodles, sneakier noodles.
No noodles.
So, let's talk a little bit about what happened last time. Well, y'all got framed, or at least someone attempted to frame you, for committing the theft that had been previously assigned to Venick the Thief, which you now know for a fact to be a different person than you, but some of the other people in town think might be you all. In particular, Nomi, the mayor's assistant. You returned back to the farm where you were staying with some guards who were there to search just to make sure you didn't have any stolen property, only to discover someone had planted stolen property there. But through some quick thinking and some smooth rolls, you managed to hide that evidence, drop it down a well before you could get busted with it. In the meantime, you also met up with this farmer who had hired you to steal the Marcus 8's plans. You did so only to discover that the Marcus 8's plans are not great for Sundell. And you all determined that what needed to happen is if the Marcus 8 wanted to invade Sundell in a rushed timeline, specifically because they thought the Grand Duchy was going to attack Sundell, maybe if you could slow down the Grand Duchy's plans, it would give Sundell more time to deal with the Marcus 8. And so you determined that you were all going to head back through the forest to the clearing of Iron Vein, the site of the noodle incident. Which we don't need to go into full detail there, except as to say that there were some denizens of the clearing very happy with the outcome, and some representatives of the Grand Duchy who were the opposite. But so as you all prepare to leave town, I gather that you had all decided to more or less kind of just sneak on out of town early in the morning.
Mm-hmm. Slip out,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And so as a result, the very first thing that we're going to need to do in this turn, in this moment here, is we need to determine what path you are intending to take through this, to make this journey. Now, you are limited in some ways. I'll briefly show everyone the map here, and you are, of course, moving from Sundell to Iron Vein. And what that means is that at least part of your journey is going to either need to cross the bridge or find some other way across the river. But for the rest of the journey, you can choose to either go on the path or through the forest.
Well, I think time is of the essence, so I think we should take the path.
Yeah, take the path over the bridge, and then we can hit the forest once we're on the other side.
I'm gonna. So I think more of the non-bridge area is is on the east side. So I think we're going to do a move for that part, and then you'll deal with the bridge as a separate thing, and then when you deal with the bridge, you'll be there.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I vote path as well. Sundell won't have yet put guards on the path against us. Neither. I don't think the Marcus 8 will have either, and we do need to get going. So I vote path as well.
Okay. And so as you travel along the path, you are making a choice too of how you proceed. You can choose at a relaxing pace, at an average pace, safely, quickly, and under the radar, or urgently fast.
I think safely, quickly, and under the radar.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Makes sense, makes sense.
Mhm.
So before we actually do the roll, I would like each of you to briefly describe your character as they make their way down the path. And this is a good opportunity for folks who maybe didn't see the other sessions to remind themselves what kind of character you're playing.
I'll start. Lancelot is a tall, suave, debonair fox, who one of the first things you notice about them is he has a very fine cloak, with a very distinctive embroidered pattern on it. Yeah, he is very often the face of the party, though based on past experience, not always, sometimes to the party's detriment. Yeah, he's a friendly, affable person who does his mischief mostly with words.
Very nice. Shall I call on you? Paul, next for Arbon.
Okay, so Arbon is at the back of the party because he covers everybody and makes sure everybody gets going. Arbon is an Amor Falcon. He is a Ronin. That means he's a knight. He's wearing armor from the Erie Dynasty Empire. He is carrying Ulan, the blue sword. He is tall, gruff, military dressed. He's the fighter, but he's not a brute. He's more skilled and more commander and honorable knight sort of approach and trying to get these guys to go where they need to go. So that's why he's back to make sure they're all going to get going at a decent pace and there are no stragglers.
Very nice. How about you next, Clem?
So Clem is a spotted box turtle, but imagine if Donatello from the Ninja Turtles carried all his gadgets inside his shell. So the shell is actually very bulky and heavy. So as he walks, you just kind of hear a clunk, clunk, clunk. And then he'll kind of stop for a second and be like, oh, I'm making noise. So he'll try to be more careful with it. And he'll still hear clunk, clunk, clunk. And it doesn't help that there's a very large blacksmith's hammer hanging from his side of his shell that is super bulky and very noticeable. So it's just, he's trying to be the slow, calm turtle that he is, but it's just, he's always the sound of clattering and metal.
I think kind of to compare it to Clem is Nigel is a capybara, brown fur and kind of bigger head, and he's not super fast when he moves, but he's moving on steadily. But he's also much quieter, even though there's a large book kind of thumping against his side with each step.
All right. Last but not least, Peppa.
Peppa is actually towards the front of the group, and she is a magpie. So she's wearing this thick gambeson, and her bow is slung over her shoulder. I don't think I ever mentioned the fact that she does in fact have a bow, um, but she does, and so she's kind of scouting ahead and trying to find the quickest and quietest way out, so that we can get out under the radar.
Okay, so now that we have got a little picture of everyone, let's make your travel along the path roll. Because you've chosen safely, quickly, and under the radar, the band collectively marks 1 depletion for supplies. So you choose between all of you to mark 1 box. Not each,
I'll take
but
it.
for everyone.
I'll take it.
All right. And you're going to roll, whoever rolls, you're going to roll 2d6 plus 1 for this approach.
+2.
Oh, yes, because Peppa is a traveler extraordinaire.
Yes.
Well, then
That's
I think you ought
only
to
if
roll.
Peppa rolls or if anybody rolls with Peppa. How does
If
that work?
anybody rolls.
It's
Okay.
people, whenever Peppa is traveling with Peppa.
Okay.
Well, I think since Peppa marked the depletion, she should roll.
Peppa rolls.
Sounds reasonable to
Okay.
me.
So 2d6 plus 2.
That's correct.
Let's
Bucks,
hope I
no
got the
whammies.
11.
11.
Nice.
Right, great. So on a 10 plus, the trip is uninterrupted and quick. Well done. So, the trip is uninterrupted and quick. The weather is good for travel. It's I think it's not the full heat of the summer. We get some nice timely autumn briskness. Certainly it's a great temperature because certainly as you maintain a significant pace, you keep yourself warm, but you don't get all sweaty because it's nice and cool. Passing through this forested road. But then as you approach the river, there is a long stone bridge. And as you approach one end of it on the eastern bank, you can see on the far side that there is a checkpoint occupied by some duchy soldiers. They've got a bit of a, sort of a cart turned sideways style, barricade on it that looks like it could be moved, but is currently preventing, individual travelers could walk around it, but it would stop a cart from going across. And there are, at least as you can see from a distance, there are at least 3 of the duchy soldiers there, and they are moles, and they are, have got, light armor to them and carrying spears.
3 of them to 4 of us. We do have them outnumbered.
Well, 5.
I'm not counting myself.
Oh.
He is a lover, not a fighter.
I'm not entirely sure how much help I would be in a fight.
So maybe we should find another place to cross the river.
Yeah.
Do we want to engage with them first, or do we want to just assume they will not let us cross?
Well,
Getting
only been a
intelligence on
week.
what?
So,
yeah,
well-
get-
And bear in mind here that, we all know that you committed the noodle incident, which is a significant heist and harm to the duchy's interests. And you gained some notoriety as a result. But that's a far cry from saying every individual duchy soldier would recognize you all on sight.
that's true.
Also,
It's a risk, but it's not a guarantee.
Lancelot puts his signature cloak in his pack. Just folds it up, stuffs it in there.
well, also, it doesn't seem that they're looking for anyone in particular. This may be the duchy just flexing its muscle a bit.
Building their sphere of influence. We should find out.
No, we can go see what's going on.
Yeah. So I think you do know that the alternative to the bridge would probably be a much longer trip unless you had prearranged for a boat.
Right.
Yeah, which we have not.
Yeah.
So
So you head across. Uh, no, Lancelot has removed his signature cloak, but Clem's distinctive, identifiable spot pattern on his shell. Um, if someone had seen him before, they would definitely recognize him again. But that's not to say that he is. There's not wanted posters of you all. Is the point?
Maybe not yet.
Well, not yet, not yet. So we'll see how it goes when you get into town. But as you are approaching, are you approaching with any specific, like, are you trying to just be casual, or with what demeanor are you approaching this checkpoint?
definitely casual.
Yep.
Perhaps
Yeah,
just visitor people that have had a long trip and don't and are just want to get to town so we can rest.
and Clem's gonna kind of drift to the back because not to have us crowded together so that we're still, we know we're a group, but we kind of want to look like, people who gathered as they were coming in, not that we traveled together.
Not that we're an adventuring party.
Okay, so are you trying to not necessarily be obvious that you're all together?
Yes,
Okay, all right.
because the
Yeah.
noodle incident, it was a heist. There was a
Yeah,
group.
Sure.
We're not necessarily a group.
Okay. Mhm. All right, so you are making your way across. One thing that I'm going to briefly note here as we meet some moles is that I think real life moles are fascinating in the sense that some of them really kind of just don't have eyes. Or they have what we would think of as eyes that are literally completely covered in skin and fur. And they can kind of see light and shadow, but they spend most of their time underground, so they don't need the sight in the same way that above ground creatures tend to do. We're not going to quite go that far with these anthropomorphic mole characters. The
Right.
assumption is going to be they can see more or less. Their eyesight is not great, but it is compensated for by excellent smell and hearing, and that we're going to more or less say that unless it comes up in the fiction, we're not like having to constantly remember that they can't see or anything like that.
So who built this bridge? OGM. Is it an Erie Dynasty?
Yeah, so the Erie dynasty wasn't ever really huge in this area. This was always kind of on the outskirts, and then as their territory dwindled during their civil wars, they kind of haven't had a presence here in a long time. This bridge has been around for a while, and then it's been kept up by, whoever, uses it, which is a lot of people. So there's just generally, I think, there's not like a specific obvious answer.
I was just curious as to behind the world, but I know
Okay,
it's just
sure.
big stone bridge across the river. Who
Yeah.
built it? Why? Yeah.
So I think probably Iron Vein, people of Iron Vein are probably who ultimately built both bridges, and that they've kind of long since been paid for, except for minor upkeep. So it's not like something that people are focusing on a lot necessarily. But so as you approach these mole guards, they do, perk up from their sort of, their relaxed positions, and then they call out as you are approaching. Be aware, travelers, that you now enter the territory of the Grand Duchy. Be prepared to present your travel papers and identification.
Is that
We
something
have-
any of us would actually have?
No.
Nope.
And it's not just because you guys are weird. That is not something that is like commonplace.
Ah,
Right.
So I'll just kind of walk up and just act as if I'm going to walk right past them and, sorry, don't have any.
No, sorry, excuse me. I'm afraid that if you do not have official Grand Duchy traveling papers, we will have to take down your name and purpose of visit.
Ah, well, my name is Bagpiper Morning, and I'm on my way to the name of the town that I've forgotten, but Lancelot definitely hasn't.
Well,
In
Iron
the
Vein
upper
is
left.
where you're
Well,
going.
no, he's on his way through to with business in another town on
Okay.
the other side.
Rooston
So,
was the
Rooston,
city that
yes.
you had talked about before.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think given that you're just going ahead and giving a fake name and a fake destination, let's go ahead and get a trick and NPC
Okay.
move.
That is a cunning roll, correct?
I believe that a trick and NPC. Actually, hang on, let me double check here. Trick and
Yes, it's
NPC
cunning.
is in fact a cunning roll. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Let me scroll to the deck. My cunning is +1. So I rolled an 11. So it's a 12.
Okay, yes. So on a hit, they take the bait and do what you want, which is you see one of them pulls out this big log book that they've got under kind of like a tarp that probably is protect it from moisture in case of rain or whatever, and they take down in the log book the name and destination that you have provided to them, and they do so without question, and they say, travel safely through the duchy.
And just saunter on through.
All right. And so Lancelot has expertly deceived the guards into allowing him through all by himself. What are the rest of you doing?
Because we're all by ourselves here. That's a great idea. Yeah.
While that's going on, could Nigel, if I basically, counterfeit really quick, counterfeit some basic travel papers?
I don't think you can do that while you're walking across the bridge.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. So here's the thing. What I will allow is, because you all know that you're heading into Grand Duchy territory, and you know that they're very big on paperwork. And even though this type of checkpoint and this sort of request wasn't in place when you last came through here, I think it's reasonable that you would know that it's theoretically something that they might ask for. So the point is that I don't think you necessarily would have all had it, but how's this? If you all mark a box of depletion, one for each of you for whom that we're going to do this for, I will let Nigel make a counterfeit roguish feat roll, and we'll see how good they are with the roll. But basically, the depletion is for materials, and we can say that had happened previously.
Yeah, and we can flash back to that moment, and Lancelot going paperwork, and just blows it off.
Okay, so if you want, maybe you didn't want to give up the resources.
No, it'll be fine.
Okay, yeah, all right, fair.
Yeah.
I am positive that it will be just fine.
So what I'll say is that we'll have Nigel make a roll for this, but whoever wants to have one of Nigel's counterfeit identification papers can mark a box of depletion to be included.
Yeah, can I definitely want some. And can I also help since I also have the counterfeit skill?
Yeah, well, so let's have Nigel make the roll, and then we'll see if your help would change the outcome.
Okay.
So it is finesse, so that's +2, and that is 9. So if help would bring it to a 10.
Yeah, so you are doing the attempt a roguish feat move because you have the roguish feat counterfeit, and so with a 9, that would be a weak hit, but you could make it a strong hit with your assistance, Peppa. So if you want to help, you can mark exhaustion +1 to to make that a 10.
Okay, I will do so.
Okay.
So who are the paper? Who's the paper call for?
They,
Me.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll take it. Just
we
Okay.
can't be all as charming as Lancelot.
Sure, sure. But so here's a big question though. You have identification papers now of the type that the Grand Duchy tends to like. But what are the names that your papers say you have? Like, is it with your actual name, or do you have fake names?
Well, I will leave that up to characters. Like, okay, Clem, should I put your name on here, or do you wish to have some other moniker?
I think I'll go with something else.
yeah.
Yes, definitely,
Something
else.
definitely a different name. Put down Roger Mornwing for me.
Roger Mornwing.
Right.
Is that an appropriate spelling?
Yes, thank you.
Peppa?
Let me think.
Okay, then. Perhaps Melk? MELK?
Um.
Could all be James
You could probably-
Bondified.
Oh.
Huh?
I am Johnny Quest.
Johnny.
Wow.
Yes.
I thought I was clever, but you beat
Interesting.
me.
Yeah.
All right.
And I'm going to nerd because Peppa is the character I nerded out on. I'm going to be Ornata Sissa,
Oh, God.
which is the Sri Lanka a part of the scientific name for the Sri Lanka blue magpie.
All right.
Nice.
That's that. You win the nerd prize.
Yeah. Actually, let's just use the whole scientific designation. Ornata urosissa. Ornata urosissa.
Okay, Nigel writes puts that on there because I'm not entirely sure.
That's fine.
Yeah.
So, but what about your own, Nigel?
You know, I'm tempted to go just say, nope, no fake name. But given given the problems that happened last time, oh shoot, wow, names blinking.
That's all right. Or you could go with something spy-like or adventure-y.
Oh,
You could take the name of the thief from Sundell and lay a false
No.
trail.
Like that wouldn't bite him in the butt.
Oh no, I don't think that wouldn't end well at all.
Glien, Glien.
All right. Okay. Anagram time. Okay, so as you are you approaching then? Each of you has your fake ID. Then, are you approaching kind of together, or are you splitting up, or doing just one at a time, or? Because Lancelot certainly went through sort of as though he was, a singleton.
Yeah,
Perhaps in pairs.
are there two guards on either side, like checking, or is it just one main guard?
Yeah, so there's three, and basically two are sort of primarily blocking the way, and one is sort of there with the logbook.
Okay. Well, Clem will go up. Well, hello. My name's Johnny. And he shows the paper.
So the guards are actually a bit surprised that you actually have the paperwork, because generally most people don't.
And he goes, and he just says, I'm a repairsman traveling to Clutcher's Creek.
Welcome to the Duchy. You've obviously been here before since you have the requisite paperwork, but welcome and travel safe.
Well,
They and they
thank you.
they write your little Johnny Quest down in their little logbook.
Okay. And Peppa will hop along, and present her paperwork, but does it kind of quickly. It's like I really got to get through. Here's paperwork, but I can go. Yeah.
Yes, well, I mean, obviously, we need to follow the appropriate protocol. I mean, hurry is, not something we want to encourage. Haste makes waste, don't you know? But they do go ahead and they like mark your information down and then and wave you through. I
Okay.
think one of the things though that it's going to occur to you as you sort of pass through is it's unusual enough for people to have these papers that kind of four people in a row that do is probably gonna put the lie to the idea that you're not together. It's gonna seem suspicious. Not suspicious, but they don't
Notable.
say anything. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think certainly each of you as you go through note as you watch them fill out the log. They definitely have a little symbol to indicate who had the papers and who didn't. All right, so because you've got good papers that do meet their requirements, nobody's getting hassled. So we can kind of unless you wanted to have a conversation with them, you can certainly kind of they take each of your name and they do ask what your plan is, where you're intending to go and mark it in the logbook. But with the paperwork, they just write down whatever you say.
And Nigel would just say, research, historical research.
Oh, yes, well, I dare say you're seeing a lot of history being made day by day in this part of the world.
Yes.
All right, so.
And Arban will say, "I'm returning back toward the dynasty, the empire, after business east."
Very well.
And then I'm actually going to engage with these guards a bit because
Okay.
So it's like, so I'll ask them. So how many? I'll ask you. Have been a lot of travelers. I got my papers back west, but when was this checkpoint is new to me? Is this something that the duchy is going to expand with?
Well, you see, now that we have.
Ask about rules of travelers because I'm a traveler, so I want to know what the
Well,
rules
yes,
of
well,
travelers
of
are.
course. As the duchy expands its territory, we have solidified our position in Iron Vein, as you will see as you continue along this path. We are in the process of establishing all the proper protocols and laws and so on and so forth, such to bring Iron Vein further within the envelope of the Grand Duchy's efficiency and productivity. So as we establish and muddle through this transitional period, I expect you'll see a lot more of the Grand Duchy's way of doing things.
Will there be other places where we've expected to show papers on a regular basis? Of course, if an officer asks us, of course we would give them. But are there other checkpoints I should know about so I don't have to rustle on my back looking for them?
I think you're asking enough questions that it's starting to be a little bit like what's going on with this guy.
Okay.
So let's see. I will let you.
I'm also trying to get other intelligence for everybody.
Yeah,
so we know
yeah,
what to
no,
deal with.
exactly. I'm trying to think. You know what? I think this is probably read a tense. No, let's say it's figure someone out because you're trying to essentially charm them into thinking it's fine to tell you whatever you want to know.
And what status figure someone
That's
out?
charm.
Okay, I have no charm. So
And everyone else has
Let's
passed
go.
on through, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's a 4.
Okay. So all that means in this context is, you don't get to answer the answer of the questions, and I think that the you're asking enough questions that the guards do tend start to like. Well, sir, I think that is the Grand Duchy's business after all. If you are indeed a denizen of the Erie dynasties, perhaps you ought to return there and mind your own affairs.
Yes, yes, sir. I'll go into the whole submissive to higher authority thing that I did with the guards
Uh-huh.
and stoop over a little bit and move along to try to
I
catch up
think
with my
as
companions.
as you kind of move away, you do see them write something extra in behind by your name in the little
Yeah.
logbook. Okay, so you have made your way across the bridge through this first checkpoint. Well done, everyone. And now you are ready to enter Iron Vein proper. So, the low stone bridge crosses the Limberley River, where it is wide and calm. The eastern bank is densely forested, rising up into cliffs as the river meanders north. On the western bank, rolling hills grow into harsh mountains of greenstone. Those mountains loom above the steep slopes of the foothills where Iron Vein resides. As you approach along the east road, the up and down rhythm begins gently, but soon the path requires switchbacks and wide curves to navigate around the increasingly vertiginous grades. Soon, however, you see a sloping valley laid out below, all the way down to the docks on the western riverbank. Central Iron Vein takes up the majority of the even ground, but homes and other businesses can be seen scattered up the hillsides. Even from a distance, you can see the enormous central longhouse that serves as Iron Vein's inn, tavern, and event space. Thick black smoke rises from the blast furnaces in the refinery and is carried away by the near constant winds. Meanwhile, several Riverfolk Company boats are in port at the docks. New since you were last here, the entrance of the enormous tunnel near the center of town has had a shaft house built over it, and you can see Duchy soldiers on almost every corner. So, I think given that your characters have been in Iron Vein before, but we haven't presented it in game.
In game, yeah.
Yeah, I think that there's occasionally going to be times where we're meeting an NPC for the first time, but your characters might know them, that sort of thing. So I think in particular, the things that you note that have changed since is the tunnel by which the Grand Duchy made their invasion, which is a big sinkhole just opened up near the center of town, and a whole bunch of mole soldiers came out and overwhelmed the clearing. And you recall there was a little bit of confusion because they basically quickly took control of the town with very little resistance and then all left again. And then a week later, they came back with a lot more people and started actually setting up control. And more people fought back the second time, but it was moot because there was no way they had enough to stand against the numbers that the Grand Duchy brought to bear. So this tunnel now has an enclosure built over the entrance to it, and I think you may, as you get closer into town, note that at least one entrance, the entrance of the longhouse that is facing the direction you're coming from, seems to have been boarded up. And then, other than that, there's just soldiers everywhere. That's what you would have noticed right away.
Now, I am going to think back to our adventures in Iron Vein last week and try to come up with the name and location of a denizen here who would be most likely to be positively inclined toward us. And are we still in sight of the of the checkpoint we came through?
No, there's a once you pass
Okay.
that checkpoint, there's actually still a little bit of going through a little bit of forest and then the hills that I was just
Okay.
describing before you get to the town.
Okay, good, good, good. So it's not like right on the edge of the town.
No, no, no.
Okay.
Now,
Um,
that said, there are lots of soldiers in town.
yeah. So before we get to the town proper, I'm going to basically I'm going to tell the party, tell the rest of our vagabonds here what I plan on doing, and you wait. Uh, I need to find a place where it's reasonable to loiter for a while.
With all
Um,
these guards.
with all these
Yeah.
guards, yeah,
Well,
we need
yeah,
to figure out a place
that's
where it's
certainly
reasonable to loiter.
yeah. So I'm going to suggest that in your initial request there of a denizen who you had more or less positive relationship with in the past, and we know there are some because you know that some of you the
Right.
gains from the noodle incident went to local denizens, and so there's going to be some that could owe you one for sure. So what I'm going to suggest is that we have all of you collectively as a group. Let's build this NPC. Who is this
Okay.
person?
All right.
So Iron Vein is another primarily fox clearing. But of
Okay.
course, as discussed, there are many species as well that make their home here. So, what do we think? What is this? Is this person, young, old?
I
I'd
think.
say, go ahead.
Oh no, you go ahead.
I was gonna say, how about a raccoon? We haven't had a raccoon yet.
Well, the Callaways, Murdy and Jinx
Oh,
were
they
raccoons.
were raccoons.
But raccoons are good. So, how about this? I would like each of you to contribute a detail about this person, and then I'll fill in the gaps.
His name is Albert Bambletove.
Okay.
Minor.
Okay. There are definitely miners in
Yep.
town. Okay.
Grayford with a white silver lock on his head.
Okay. Is this a what are they a fox or a raccoon or
Yeah, I'll say my deal is that he's a raccoon.
okay?
And he's got a wife named Mina and two little raccoonlet children, Egbert and Beetle.
Egbert and Beetle. How do you spell Beetle?
Beetle. It's like beetle
Okay.
with a V.
All right. There you go. Just like it sounds. Okay. Great, great, great. And so is this someone who just got a taste of the stolen coin following the noodle incident?
We paid him for for helping to dig a side passage that got us into the place where we
Nice.
did the heist.
Okay, yeah. So I think you know where his house is in town, and it's one of the ones that's like up the slope of the hill a little bit. So it's outside of the denser part of town. So you know where that is. But you would be passing through central Iron Vein to get there unless you took a really roundabout route, which you could do, but it's not the straightforward way.
Also, I'd like to establish another detail.
Okay.
That we did have a temporary camp outside of town that we used along the way.
Okay.
Shelter?
A shelter, yeah. We didn't actually build much there. We just kind of pitched tents and things, but it's a place we all knew, and it's not an immediate like visibility of the town proper. So it's at least for a little while, might be a safe place to loiter while I go scout out Albert's um,
Situation.
Albert's situation.
Okay, well, so hang on, because this, if you want to kind of set up camp, that's not necessarily like a trivial thing. I might need you to expend some resource for it. Let's see. Um,
I'm not saying that they're going to set up camp there. I'm saying that that's a place where we had done so in the past, and I can rendezvous there with them after I've checked things out with Albert.
okay,
That's the
well,
point.
so, I mean, if you're
Rather than having
talking,
this entire group descend on his house.
okay, so what I'm saying
perhaps
is, if you
draw
want a
suspicion.
place that is going to be sufficient to stay the night, you're going to need some like supplies, expend some supplies to make that the case.
Oh, yeah, I understand. I'm just saying I'll meet you at the campsite we had last time around.
Okay, yeah, if you just
I'm
want a
gonna go
rendezvous point, then that's fine. Yeah.
That's all it is for me.
Okay.
If they want to build a camp there, that's great. But
Okay.
right now it's just like
That's
That's
why
a
I wanted
rendezvous
to
point.
clarify. All right.
right.
Yeah.
And I'm going to head to Albert's house. At what time of day is it?
I think you are arriving. Someone roll a d6 for me.
1.
Okay. I think it is relatively early still.
Okay. Is it early enough that people would not have?
Yeah,
Gone
well,
off
I would
to
think
work?
it's still like 10 a.m.
Okay. Well, somebody is likely to be home. He's got a whole family. So I'm going to head to Albert and Mina's house.
Okay.
And
Well, so you're just going by yourself? Is everyone else happy to just.
going by myself because I'm just kind of checking out the situation, getting some information about what's happened in the last week.
Okay.
And yeah.
Since this is up on the slope a little bit, going towards his place, of course, can I see from where I'm at, like where the river folk company boats are? And
Yeah, well,
That's
so
probably right near the bridge.
yeah, well, so certainly, like if you're looking at the map, the docks are on. So I could put up the map again here. So Iron
The docks
Vein,
are on the far side.
the
Okay, yeah.
the docks are on the western bank, or for the river, that half of the sort of peninsula, and so the Iron Vein itself is kind of in a valley that slopes down to where the docks are.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, as you sort of crest the hill that reveals Iron Vein before you, yeah, you can see all the way down to where the docks are.
do I happen to recognize any of the colors on those ships?
I think you're not close enough
Okay.
To recognize individual ships.
Oh, I meant like their flag. Like
Okay, you're not close enough. You
okay.
can see that there are ships is about the level of detail you have from where you are.
Okay.
So I guess that's what I'm just trying to say is that, like, is everyone else totally fine with just saying, okay, you're just going to wait outside of town, or?
Well,
I think Nigel would like fine, and then just kind of sit and make some notes on things.
Okay.
Lancelot is our face, and if he can do it better solo, then I'll let him do his voodoo that he does so well.
All right.
And if there's trouble, he can probably get out of it faster than all of us together. So, and then we can hightail.
Okay. So as you are, you kind of hunker down off the path a little bit, but in the hills nearby, in a spot that you, as a group, had known before. Lancelot heads into Iron Vein. Are you wearing your cloak or no?
I am not wearing my cloak.
Okay.
Probably not a good idea to wear it where any guards or anybody can see it. Yeah.
So, as you pass through town, are you making a point to check out anything in particular, or are you just trying
Oh,
to
I'm
get
keeping
from here
my
to there?
I am keeping my eyes open.
Mm-hmm.
Primarily, it's because that it's um, just I want to see if anybody is following me or noticing me, and in case because if I feel like if I've got a tail, if somebody's tailing me,
Mm-hmm.
um,
I yeah.
or
So
if
I'm assuming that you would be trying to pay attention to stuff like that. The issue is,
yeah.
are you literally just trying to take the most direct route from here to the house, or are you trying to
Hmm.
also get a sense of the rest of the town? Is
It
my
is
question.
early in the day, so I don't think that we're really tremendously rushed at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So, no, I think I'll um, pass like within a block of the main areas and
Mm-hmm.
just kind of have a look at how the town is doing and how people are, and get a kind of a
Mm-hmm.
general impression of what's going on
Okay. So,
in that
yeah,
way.
I think the things that you in particular notice are that, sure enough, just as you had seen from a distance, the longhouse is this big structure where it's really the town's only inn, and it's not even really separate rooms. It's just kind of bunks up on an upper level. But it's also where there had been the town's only real restaurant, which it prepared a lot of excellent noodle soups by a lemur cook to whom you became familiar. But and so like it was just this big sort of common area restaurant in gathering space sort of
Hmm.
place. But it seems clear that all but one of the entrances have been actively boarded up, and the one remaining entrance is guarded by two mole guards.
Okay.
And I think the other thing that you would have sort of passed by without kind of just taking a more thorough survey is you see at one corner there is a minstrel, a lute player, a sparrow
Hmm.
named Donna, who used to perform at the Longhouse, and you see her standing on a corner, and you realize a little bit abruptly that she's been trying to perform on the corner, but it's very difficult because this is a very windy place, and it's just like her singing it doesn't carry very well from the in the wind, and in fact, as you're sort of passing by and you see her at a distance, you see that a couple of mole guards are going up to talk to her, and she stops singing. She's talking to them, looking frustrated. But
Hmm.
that's kind of like a little ways off. You'd have to go out of your way.
Yeah, I'd love to intervene, but I don't want to take too long and get to any trouble. So I'm just going to kind of make note of that, check in with her later, and continue on my way.
Okay.
Avoiding imperial entanglements.
Yes, looking for any
Yeah.
ducal entanglements.
Okay, so yeah, you pass through kind of the center of town and start up the hillside to where
Hmm.
Albert's house is.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so I think as you approach the house, it does seem quiet at first, but then you hear the rhythmic thumping of what sounds like children running around inside.
Okay, all right. So I will head up to the door and knock.
Uh, yeah. So Albert's wife Mina
Hmm.
answers the door with just a crack at first, but then when she sees it's you, she says, "Oh well, Lancelot, come on in, come on in."
And he hustles inside, checks one more time to make sure that he's not being tailed,
Mm-hmm.
and slips inside.
Yeah, she does her own sort of look around and closes the door and just says, "Well, I did not expect to see you again so soon. What you doing back in town? Like, where are the others?"
Well, they're about. We've stayed together since the noodle incident. We've decided it is profitable to continue our association. But I figured it would not be such a great idea to have the entire passel of us trooping through the streets with the moles about the way they are. So I just came to kind of get any of the local news that's happened lately, things, what might be going on that you've heard, because we're intending on causing some more trouble for the Dookie, and we just wanted to find out what's going on, and maybe um, where the action is. Because as you know, we are quite good at making trouble, and we might have a client who's paying us to make some here for the Dookie. Now, I'm not saying that we have the capacity to run them out of town, but we can put a few pins in their toes. Then that would be good for all of us.
So I will address Mina's response in just a moment, but I want to go meta just for a moment to say I've been saying duchy,
Oh,
but I guess I don't know for certain that like I didn't like look up how that word is pronounced exactly.
it's one of those weird English words
Yeah.
where it's kind of like how CHALMONDELEY is pronounced Chumley.
Yeah. Well, so here,
So
but I think the reason I probably settled on duchy is because the other one is dookie, like the other
right,
thing that's
but
dookie.
right, but the adjectival form of dookie of duchy is ducal.
Okay. Well, I'm also thinking of the word for poop.
Yeah, I know, I understand, but yes, but the adjective form of duchy
I
is
think
ducal.
I think Duchy's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
duchy's
okay.
fine.
Well, I am somewhat amused in the sense that it's perhaps something where they themselves say duchy, but it is perhaps
Oh, yeah. So
a choice of people who don't like them to call them the dookie.
that sounds good to me.
All right.
I
So,
figured I figured that pronunciation was completely intended.
Yeah.
well, yeah. So I was just trying to clarify because it occurred to me that I wasn't sure I was right, but at least in terms of the real world,
Right.
but in the woodland in which we are playing, they refer to themselves as the duchy, but others
Yes.
might call them the dookie regardless. Anyway,
Right.
Mina is bemused by that whole spiel. She says, "Well, I certainly don't mind folks causing trouble for the dookie, as you say. But that said, I mean, unless you think that trouble's going to get them all the way out of here, I would hope you can not implicate me or Albert."
Oh no, absolutely. We're going to do our best to make sure that nobody who actually lives here gets in any trouble for this. We are this, our rootlessness gives us an advantage when it comes to this sort of thing, in that it gives everybody in town a certain amount of plausible deniability, as they say,
Hmm.
to say, "Oh, it was those troublemaking vagabonds." I certainly would never have gotten involved in anything so underhanded and uh,
Disorderly.
disorderly. So all I'm asking for is a little information,
Well,
just what's gone on since we left. Looks like they've been building a great deal.
oh, sure.
That's
Yeah, they've
something
got a
new.
lot more planned as far to hear them tell it. First of all, I'm sure you saw that they got they got people coming out of the ground, literally. There's just tons of them around, and you never can tell exactly how many because they stay underground. Like when they come out on they're on duty, they come up, but they go back down underground when they're off
Mhm.
duty.
Mhm. Mhm.
So we don't even know how many there are, but there's definitely a lot.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
I'm sure you saw that they boarded up the longhouse.
Mhm.
They kicked out everybody in there, and they just took it over and made it like their base of operations or whatnot. Their little local officials do business out of there, but they kicked out everyone that was in there, including Pinton. Pinton is the noodle chef that I mentioned previously, and it's pretty like there's not really anywhere else in Iron Vein that travelers can stay. It seems not
Mhm.
ideal to me, but I don't know what their plans are ultimately. They already built a big thing over the tunnel entrance. They're talking about here's the thing, that trading post that the Riverfolk Company was going to build. Now that's been all nixed. I guess they're saying they're going to build a market there instead, but they made those folks stop their construction. They're instituting. They put up. Well, you might have seen one coming in. You didn't, but they're starting to put up all these posters with like rules and laws and telling everybody they're going to have to follow all those rules. It hasn't
Mhm.
bitten us too much yet, but I know some of the business owners in town have been running into trouble, and I don't know. I mean, they just seem like they're settling in.
Okay. Well, that's given me a few things to look at. Um, I thank you for your trouble. I don't want to stay here any and make it bring any um, official attention your way. I understand that that is a problem. So, thank you for your information. Please do give Albert all my love. It was good to see you again, and I'm hoping that maybe we can meet in Firelight at some point, and he will slip back out
So,
again.
before you can do that, you go to move and discover that you have two raccoon children around your shins.
Oh,
It's like,
And
oh no, oh
yeah,
no,
yeah,
I am being attacked by these terrible, terrible heroes.
yeah, they're
And
definitely doing that thing where they sit on your foot and they got their arms and legs around your. Yeah.
it's like,
Um,
yes, I am rooted to the spot.
she laughs. Mina laughs and says, "Oh, one last thing is, you might check in on Johann, who you would have heard of Johann at least, who runs
Mhm.
the iron refinery. It's like I think he said that he's expecting some Dutchy bigwig to come through in the next couple of days for some reason.
oh,
Thank you for that. That is a useful piece of information. Now, Johann is also a denizen, I take it.
Yes, Johann is
Okay.
is a fox. He is very good at running the place that refines the iron ore
Mhm.
into raw, iron that can be
That's-
worked into other
Okay,
things. He
so a
is
smelter.
Yes, but it's not even so much just that him doing that part of it exactly. He
Mhm.
runs the place where that is done. So he has people work
Okay,
for him and so on, but he's the one that's like in charge. So he is very good at that,
right.
but not a sophisticated thinker otherwise, was your impression, I think.
Okay, okay.
And in any case, that's yeah, Johann. Shoot, did I give him a last name? I don't think I did. Everly, Johann Everly um,
Okay.
is who she's talking about, and I
All
don't
right.
think you know him very well, but you would have sort of heard his name
I've heard of
before.
him.
I
Mhm.
mean, he's a
Okay.
big part of the town's industry, is why.
Right, right,
Yeah,
right, right. He's one of the leaders of the town, at least among the denizens.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. All right. I am going to leave her house again. I'm going
Hmm.
to take a stroll again, looking like I know where I'm going
Hmm.
and have a purpose in being there. Um, past the uh, smeltering, I wonder what you call a place where you find a smelter.
Well, I've been
The
calling it a
smelter.
refinery, but it's
Right. Well, I mean, smelter is a kind of a refinery.
yeah.
Yeah. And gonna just walk past and have a look around and see how many guards there are and whether there's checkpoints around it and that kind of thing, because it sounds like the kind of thing that would be pretty heavily secured. Just have a look, take a count, but be casual about it. I'm not interrogating anybody or lingering anywhere. And loop around past there and then back to the rendezvous point.
Right. So one of the things that you also spot on the way there is one of the posters that Mina mentioned, and I have not written this out in its entirety, but what it is very flowery, ornate, to a fault language that establishes expected conduct within the for new duchy citizens, and it more or less amounts to do what the soldiers tell you, don't interfere with them, do your job responsibly, follow the applicable regulations, and submit all applicable paperwork. And it's kind of like, as you glance through and skim through it, that seems to be the gist of it, but there's actually a lot of flowery language and detail and so on, to the point that's yeah, it's a little much.
Okay.
At the refinery itself, there's big parts of it that have big open areas, but the places where the blast furnaces are enclosed. So in order to not cool them off too much, since that's the opposite of the intent. But there's I actually did look up a little bit, like at this time period, what was it like to make iron ore into iron, and more or less they're making charcoal out of trees, and then that is burned along with limestone and the iron ore, and it burns out the the impurities. Yeah. So they've got a fairly solid operation that's been doing this for a while. And in town, like, this place does not fully render everything into steel. They make iron ingots. And the iron ingots get sold elsewhere, because there's different varieties of steel made all over the woodland. You hear about mouse folk steel or rabbit folk steel and so on. But here's where they're making the iron that gets made into steel wherever it goes. And it's a fairly solid operation. It seems to be operating at full capacity right now. You do see there's a handful of guards standing nearby, but they don't seem to be interfering. As far as you can tell, just walking by, it looks to be under full operation.
Right. Full operation and not particularly heavy guards. There's nobody checking on me as I approach. There's
no.
Okay. All right. Then I will loop back around again, keeping my eyes open, and head back to the rendezvous point, making sure that I'm not being followed.
Okay. I just realized one of the details that I meant to have communicated to you is that the duchy has a number of different officials that they have as a member of their overall parliament, is your understanding, but they also replicate in local chapters for each clearing. But the one who's kind of in charge over everyone within the clearing is the mayor, and that mayor, the mayor who was in charge at the time of your noodle incident, has not been seen again, and there is a new mayor.
Okay.
Nobody knows exactly what happened. He went back into the tunnel and didn't come out again, and a different mayor came out and said, "I'm the new mayor."
Okay. The rules pages, they have probably some kind of imprimatur to say, okay, this is the authority under which these are being.
Yeah, there's like a seal.
Right. So has that got the duchy seal, or is it the mayor's signature?
No, I think it's just got like a crest on it, like the Grand Duchy crest.
All right. Okay, so I haven't seen anything yet to see what the mayor's name is. Okay.
No.
All right.
I
So
think,
I'll head back to the
I
rendezvous
think
point.
if you would have asked Mina about that, she would have told you that the new mayor's
Okay.
name is Wilhelm Tropping.
Okay.
Very Central European.
And I will head back to the rendezvous point.
All right. So what do the rest of you get up to? This would have been, I don't know, maybe an hour and a half.
Keeping watch over these three to make sure no trouble comes along, or if trouble comes, that at least I'll see it coming and be able to get them herded away. So on guard,
Sure.
as usual.
Yeah.
After a bit, Wilfred would,
Or
would,
Nigel.
or, yeah, Nigel would, close his book and just look over the town, just kind of start counting buildings, see if anything like that's changed. You know.
Yeah, I think you notice mostly the things that I pointed out already. They've built a new structure over where the tunnel came up. There's been some boarding up of the longhouse.
Does Nigel do any drawing at all, or is it just he just works with words?
He does some sketching. He's, it's more just like get the basic idea of things down.
Okay.
And actually, yeah, he would, he would turn to a page where he had a kind of sketch of Iron Vein and mark changes.
Sure.
All right.
And I think Peppa is taking a nap.
Okay.
Clem checked on Peppa's shoulder, and then after that was done, he again withdrew his arms and head into his shell, and there's just the faint sounds of random clink, 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 bonk. Ow, my thumb.
Clem doesn't need a workshop. He carries it with him.
It is the workshop.
Yeah.
And then from inside the show you hear, exactly.
Are you working on anything meaningful, or just
No, just kind of putzing around.
Sure.
And the less visible his face is, especially with river company boats in town, is the better.
Yeah. Okay, so Lancelot, you have returned.
And I will tell everybody what I discovered. It's pretty much as we expected. Especially passing on her fear that if we get up to any mischief, that we don't want to implicate any of the locals. When I passed by the works that are above that have to do with their tunnel, what is it? Did they like erect a building there?
Yeah,
or...
yeah. It's what's known
Wow.
as it's like it's a shaft house. It's basically designed to instead of just being a hole, it's designed to be kind of like a lift with a winch so it's easy for access, and they can lift heavy things in and out of it without having to worry about the sides crumbling and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So.
And it's not a very it's not a huge complicated building, but it did go up pretty fast.
Yeah. All right. Is it made out of wood or steel or
wood?
All right. All right. So, I'm thinking that one fairly simple way to slow them down would be to just burn that shaft house down. It's wood. We get a little bit of accelerant of some kind. and in the middle of the night, just sneak by and set the legs on fire, um, and in a way that is not going to get put out right away. So whatever equipment they've got in there falls into the hole, and that might slow them down a bit. So we'll need to gather some materials. This is not a town where they are lacking in things that burn. And now they're probably going to have a lot of security there, so we may want to figure out some kind of distraction for them,
Well-
diversion to drag to.
I do believe the security would be the biggest hurdle to the length of the burn required.
I also don't know how much that really would slow them down, seeing as they built that within a week. So sure, it might burn down in a day, but then another week goes by and they have a new one.
It depends on whether like they had the machinery, etc., ready to go when they invaded so that they could put it up. I mean, that's seems to me that might be part of that. But that's just a thought. I mean, that might be something that is part of a broader campaign of sabotage.
The detail
Yes,
that
perhaps we should avoid using fire in the second clearing we're assisting.
we might wind up with a reputation. The detail that you told from what our friend said picked out is the bigwig coming in 2 days.
That's true.
I mean, attacking high-ranking individuals might be a profitable way of slowing down their intentions, especially if they happen to be a military leader. I mean, they would be heavily guarded, but to incapacitate them at the very least would definitely throw a rink in their plans.
Another thought that I had was, how much the moles like their paperwork, would be to find a source of their paper and inundate them with misleading information and papers that are difficult to tell from the actual ones and mix them all together and
Or destroying their records.
or just
I know, Nigel, that might sound like a shocking idea to you as an archivist, but destroying the duchy's records might be a useful way of at least annoying them, because then they won't have all their happy little forms and perquisites all set up.
Well, we might have to find where they would keep those. Also,
Yes.
if this bigwig is coming to investigate the ironworks, maybe they're looking for supplies to press further. So maybe if there was a way to either slow down the processing of iron or maybe just slow down the mining in general. Because
That would be
if Iron Vein doesn't make iron, it's not a very strategic point to take over now, is it?
yeah, but that definitely would hurt the denizens as well.
yes.
So
So-
I'm
Probably
Right.
better to have a conversation with the guy who runs the place, because he might have more information on what they're actually looking for.
One other thing I'll just mention is that the papers that you stole from Elaine in Sundell, the Marcus 8 representative there, referred to there being intelligence that the Grand Duchy was planning to take Sundell, but didn't actually include any of the details. So all you know is that Marcus 8 report said that there was intelligence, but you don't know any of the details about it.
Okay.
I'd love to get down in those tunnels and see if they're actually digging towards Sundell. That would be what I would expect to see. But
That would be kind of dangerous with the river. Uh, they'd have to dig
well,
very deep so as not to make it collapse.
well, I
Well,
mean, they dug under a river to get here, so
they have the skills. It's enormous effort. But
You
how
don't
far
know
they've got
that for
to
a fact. You don't know exactly what the path of their tunnel to here was. But that said, it is certainly not unheard of for them to have
right.
built tunnels under rivers. But also, as Clem points out, more difficult.
more
I
difficult.
do
Yeah.
like the idea of disrupting their paperwork in some way. And perhaps the easiest would be to add in uh, improper paperwork.
Yeah, you know, let's say if we go talk to the guy who runs the ironworks, he's good at running that place, so he probably knows the paperwork in and out. So he might know how to, fudge the numbers to show that maybe potentially the mine is slowing down. Because,
No, I don't think that would be helpful to the people here. That would most likely invite retaliation.
I think conflicting paperwork would be more appropriate for helping the denizens.
So they don't know which paperwork is good and which isn't. Like counterfeit
Yes.
paperwork.
Yes.
but what are you going to counterfeit? Because, I mean, just making fake papers is fine, but we have to know what's important to fake and what's not.
So I think
That is
we're gonna have
that
to
is
get our
further
hands on
research.
we're gonna have to get our hands on some of their papers in order to know what kind of things would bollocks it up. So I think the first thing we need to do is sneak into the longhouse and steal some of their papers, and have an idea of what it'll tell us an idea of what's going on with them, perhaps, and and uh, and uh, give us a format to maybe find some directions from which we can attack it. So I think that's our next job.
Now, if we find out they are digging a tunnel under the river, we might be able to flood it.
Oh, that came to mind too. But I don't know how we would manage that. I don't think that any of us are in a position to dig from a river bottom down into a tunnel. And there's a checkpoint right there. They'd probably see it if we were doing anything there. I'm not sure that. I mean,
Well, if we're
maybe
going
we'll
to,
find something in their paperwork that says, "Oh, they're worried about this particular section of tunnel. Be sure that it's well sealed against the river. Don't and maybe it has a weak point there that we can attack
now,
if we can get down in those tunnels."
now,
But
if we're going to sneak into the longhouse to look for their paperwork, we'll probably be near where they're entering and exiting their own mine shaft if they're digging it. And I mean, a large enough kaboom would sink it. And this is a mining town, and they do have to blast to get out the mine stuff.
are there explosives in this world?
Yes, there are.
Okay.
They're more common in some parts of the world than others. Like we've established, like the Marcasate is relatively technologically advanced compared to
Okay.
a lot of their neighbors. Um, it is a bit more expensive, so they probably use it sparingly because it's not only expensive but also
Yeah. Dangerous.
yeah.
Right.
So it's not super stable, so they probably use it sparingly. But yes, there's definitely explosives exist.
I can just imagine. Yeah, yeah. We get basically a big bundle of dynamite with a waterproof fuse, and like just one night the uh, checkpoint people are just they're watching, they're just staying guard. All of a sudden, plop, I'm like, what was that? And a few months later,
Well, that's a possibility if we knew where their tunnels were and whether they
yeah,
were under the river and all kinds of other things. Then I think all of which is contingent upon getting some good information from the duchy itself.
So you're suggesting our first course of action is to gather intelligence, primarily paperwork and other information from the Longhouse
From the Longhouse or any other place where the
Where-
duchy has
offices.
record
and-
keepers and stuff like that. So I think we want to have another look around, find out if there's any other places aside from the Longhouse where they're doing this. I have a feeling that just for security purposes, they're all doing it in one place. Makes it easier to keep an eye on. Means it'll be harder to get into, but
It
but
also
another thing we
avoids-
can do is like, they probably have got papers that they're using to interact with shopkeepers and such.
I believe if we can.
Nina said that some of the shopkeepers have been having trouble with the duchy, probably over bureaucracy. So perhaps it's a good idea to talk to some of them and find out what's going on that way and see if they're being required to file certain paperwork and who they file it with and when and that kind of thing. So that
Nigel,
we
you were
can-
trying to say something?
Yes, I believe Johann might be a good first choice since we have a recommendation from a local to speak
Well,
with him.
yes. I
And
think he's definitely on the list of people to talk to.
and given how vital his industry is to the efforts of the duchy, you would have some examples of duchy paperwork.
Well, given that you are that I am not one of the forgers in the group, and since we probably don't want to steal papers from him, that might get him into trouble, might cause him some problems. It might be a good idea for you and Peppa to go have a talk to him and see if you can get a look at his papers.
One other thing that I'll note, just because we haven't really dealt too much with it, but like if Arban or Peppa wanted to try to do a little aerial surveillance, you certainly are capable of flying over the clearing a bit and getting a sense of things that you'd be able to see from the air. The risk just being that
we might have to file paperwork.
people
for
might
that.
people might just see you up there and wonder what you're doing. So
Yeah.
but then again, the same is true if you're walking down the street.
Right.
So just
Just
wanted
fly
to-
casual.
Yeah.
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 No, yeah. So yeah, I think I like that idea for Arben to do an aerial overview of the town. This is giving his tactical eye, see where the concentrations of soldiers are, what's the population doing on the streets, and fly casual and do reconnaissance and scouting. So I think that's what Auburn wants to do.
Well, and
Thank you,
part of what
OJ.
I was thinking there too is that Peppa, as a Harrier, you have a specific move that is triggered when you spend time looking for a secret way in or out of a place.
Yeah, and that was my thought of, once we've seen the paperwork, sneaking into the longhouse, going to find secret paths and stuff. But do you mean looking, doing the overview to see if I could find
Well,
secret
it depends.
paths?
I was just saying that I'm not necessarily saying that you would do that. I'm just trying to make sure everyone is aware of what options they have.
Yeah.
So
I think I would. I would take that option. I think I would take that option to do a flyover, or if I think I would do that. I can go with Arbin and see if I can see what I can see.
all right. Well, so I think the obvious survey move would be read a tense situation, but if you wanted to be specifically looking for secret ways in or out of a specific place, that's a different move for you, Peppa.
Yeah. I think um, I think secret ways in and out of the longhouse would be what I would be thinking about.
Okay.
Just because, just because that's where we would be, concentrating on getting stuff done, the paperwork route. So yeah, I think I would be. That's what from a role play perspective, that's what she would be concentrating on.
Whereas Arban definitely wants to read into the situation, trying to get some more information about the town and the duchy's footprint on it.
Okay. So I think. Uh,
Yeah, Smuggler's Path, I roll with luck.
Yeah, and I'm also just looking at the description of the move, and it kind of suggests it's something you don't do like in advance. Well, no, it could be. Depends. So I guess the question is like, I suggested this only because it kind of makes sense to me that if you were going to do this type of reconnaissance, you would probably do it sooner than some of the other things. But you all tell me what order you're doing things in.
Okay, well, while they're flying out, I want to bring Nigel out to the smelter.
Okay. Clem, what about you? Are you going to go along with them or?
Isn't?
Hey, Clem.
Jason?
Muted.
Jason.
Yeah, I will. I'll go with those guys. Seeing as I can't fly,
Yeah.
I'll tug along, but I'll try to keep the jangling down to a minimum.
Okay. All right. So.
Yeah, well, it's not. We're not being stealthy.
Sure.
We're walking down the middle of the street. So.
Okay, so let's first follow Arbon and Peppa. So I'm imagining first that you're going to kind of do general like surveillance of the overall area. So let's frame that as Arbon's read a tense situation, and maybe Peppa can aid if it seems appropriate, and then we can try the smuggler's path for the longhouse in particular. Does that sound?
Sure.
Yep.
All right, so
Okay, reading a
let's,
tense situation.
yes, which is
That's
this
cunning?
is reading. Yes, roll with cunning.
That would be a 10.
Okay, on a 10 plus, you can ask 3 of those questions and take +1 when acting on the answers. And so, you've got these. What's my best way out in through? Although you need a specific detail for the question there. Who or what is the biggest threat? Who or what is most vulnerable to me? What should I be on the lookout for? Who is in control here?
Okay, so I know in general the duchy is the biggest threat, but I mean, serving over, where's the biggest concentration of forces? Was the biggest threat. So that's my first. That's where his military guy goes first. What is the biggest threat in this town?
Okay. So as you are flying around, you notice at certain point there is now you've seen the sort of rank and file mole soldiers around, and then you've seen one in particular who seems to be kind of like they've got like, when I say fancier armor, I don't just mean like decorated. I mean like it's
Heavy.
elaborate in some way. It's specialized, I guess is my point.
Okay.
But then you also have seen others, there at least one other that does seem to be some kind of an officer that you've seen kind of giving directions to the rank and file ones. But as you're flying around, you see what looks like a conversation between a mole that has a very decorated suit of armor, like that seems to be much more on the lines of like high up military official as opposed to, a general. How about a general? although you
Okay.
don't know exactly what the like the
The,
ranks
the, the
are.
ranks in the duchy are,
Right.
yeah.
But so what I would say is, you, as you are flying around, see that of the various mole soldiers, the three that are kind of like the ones to know what they're up to and what they're doing. There's one that you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and give you their actual ranks so that we can refer to them. There's
Okay.
the captain, who is in the specialized armor. There is the marshal, who seems to be in charge of directing the rank and file soldiers. And then there is the brigadier, who is the one that seems to be in charge of all things military here.
Okay. That's all useful intelligence. Absolutely.
Yeah. So there's a
Okay,
bunch
so
of rank and file, but those are the big three.
right. So conversely, okay, so they're the threat. What's most vulnerable to me? So where's the soft underbelly of the duchy?
Right, right. I think you see that the longhouse, although they have barricaded all but one entrance, and that one entrance is guarded, as you're flying over, you see denizens coming in and out of there. Which presumably means that although they've taken over that location as part of their base of operations, it is also the location where denizens come and go in order to work on paperwork and turn things in, and et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
Right? And so it looks like it can't be 100% locked down, because they still need people to come and go from it.
And okay, so I get one more question. So I'm always thinking, if things go wrong, what's the best way out of Iron Vale?
Iron Vein.
Iron Vein, sorry,
Yeah,
Iron
that's
Vale.
all
What's the
right.
best way out?
Yeah, so because a lot of on one side it's down to the docks, you would have the river is harder to pass by any of you that don't have a ship. So like if you had a connection with someone on one of those boats, that would be a good way to get out quick. Alternately, there is forest just over the hills, kind of just past where your crew's little rendezvous spot was. And so if you needed to make a run for the forest, you would know which direction to go for that. So the forest in and of itself is not inherently safe, but if you needed to make yourself scarce quickly, that would be another way to go.
And I doubt that these, underground dwelling, bureaucratic, urbane moles are good at forest tracking.
It
They
is not their
themselves,
preferred method of travel.
yeah, they might have duchy citizens who are, but the moles themselves might not be.
Right.
Yep. This is all good information. I consider my flight a success.
Well, good. So, as you are, especially in the context of if you're looking for a secret way in and out of the longhouse, well, that was one of your what is most vulnerable to me answers. So, that would be a +1 to the smuggler's path. For you, well, hang on. Do you have any connection with Peppa? I don't think the two of you do. Do you? Either of you?
I don't.
No.
No,
Okay. All right.
sadly
Well,
not.
so I guess you can't give the +1 to Peppa in this context, but certainly you can be present for a possible aid, if the roll goes badly otherwise. So.
Yeah.
So let's
Okay.
see. So for you are looking for a secret way in or out of the longhouse, kind of flying around overhead. Go ahead and roll with luck, Peppa.
11.
11.
Nice.
Okay. Hey, yeah. So here's the thing. Since you all stayed in the longhouse once before, you kind of recognize that as you're flying over, there's a little spot on the roof that you're saying, wait, what? That, like the little sort of thatching and shingle area. You probably don't have shingles and thatching, but this place does because it's special. There's a spot that looks a little bit discolored, like like the shingles there were installed at a different time than the rest of them, so it's not they're not weathered in the same rate. And you realize, wait a minute. I remember when we stayed there and we had the bunks up on the upper level, there was a big vent there that was meant for letting, it had a number of openings for letting like fire smoke exit the roof and not collect up there. But this one was a little bit to the side, and it was like a little hatch almost. And if you can get onto the roof, that hatch leads to the upper levels of the bunks.
Okay, cool. Excellent.
So I don't know if you try to go in there right now, but just in case I forget, remind me to remind you when and if you actually go through there, that because you got a 10 plus, there's also something of value in there for you. But if you don't go in now, you don't see it.
Yeah. That will probably come into play when we try to switch documents.
Yeah. All right. So in the meantime, Lancelot, Clem, and Nigel are heading down into to check out the refinery.
Yes. Yes. Looking for, an office, an administrative building, someplace where we can likely find this Johann fellow.
Sure. As you are making your way towards that building, as I mentioned, there are a couple of guards outside, and they do seem to be watching, like, for anyone who's coming or going. Do you just plan to go ahead and? I mean, they look like they're going to question you if you try to go inside.
Yeah. Hey, Nigel, give me a sheet of paper.
Here.
I'm going to. Give me a pen.
Be careful with it.
I am going to dash off a quick letter. And
Here, Clem, give me your shell to write on.
Yeah. Right on Clem's back. Dear Johann, here is the repair expert I was talking to you about. He can probably handle your problem. Sincerely, Bagsley. And just roll it up.
Okay.
And just walk up to the guards. And just say, we got a repair expert here to talk to Johann.
This sounds very much like a trick and NPC roll to me.
Okay.
So this is roll with cunning.
I rolled an 8 plus 1 is 9.
Very good. Okay, so on a 7 to 9, they can instead choose one of the options, like they hesitate, they stumble, they overreact. But I think in this case, they just decide that one of them needs to go in with you to make sure you don't do something weird. So
Okay.
of the two guards, one of them is kind of breaking off from that post outside and says, "All right, well, I suppose this is part of the orders of operation here, so let's go inside then. Come with me."
Okay.
Some goes, "Well, thank you for showing us the way. We're new in town."
Yes, well, so are we. Ha ha!
head into the administrator's office,
Mm-hmm.
uh, uh, and going to just pretend like it's all arranged,
Sure.
and walk in as if I'm doing the kind of salesman thing
Mm-hmm.
of acting friendly, even though I haven't got the fug. I've never met this guy before,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but I'm walking in as if he's a good friend, saying,
Well, so but before we get there, I'm just so that as we just to give some description as you enter,
yeah,
I think inside the building it's just immediately 25 degrees warmer. Inside,
mhm.
they've got these big blast furnaces going, and there's a couple of walkways along that path. You see a number of workers, a lot of them foxes, but not all seem to be going about their business.
Yeah.
You do also see a couple of really sweaty Dutchy guards that look like
Mhm.
they've loosened their armor a little bit. Uh,
Mhm.
um,
Well, there's
but
some guys working bellows, big huge bellows
yeah,
that are firing the furnace, and
exactly.
uh,
And so, but they do guide you along over to there is a smaller office area that's walled off a little bit, and you do see a name by there that says Johann Everly, supervisor. And so
um,
the guard, opens the door first and just says,
mhm.
"Mr. Everly, it appears that you have visitors. Were you expecting anyone with a repair expert today?" And so I think through the doorway, Lancelot, like you're seeing over the shoulder of this
Uh-huh,
mole soldier, and there's a moment of just
I'm
like
gonna wink,
blank
kind of give
from
him a
Johann.
big wink
Okay.
over the backyard, and a thumbs up, and a nod as if to say, this is going to be to your advantage if you agree to this.
Okay. So I think by your standards, Lancelot, there is an uncomfortably long deer in the headlights glare. But then he says, "Oh, well, I always can use a good repair expert." And then the mole is just like, "Ah, well, very well then, off you go." And he turns around to go in and lets you. The
Okay.
it's all three of you, right? Or did someone stay out?
Right.
Yes.
Well, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And so I'm going to saunter in,
Okay.
and can I
Well, so as
use?
soon as the guard turns and leaves, you can go in and close the door behind you if you want.
Yeah. That definitely is
Mm-hmm.
what I. But the move that I'm looking at is meet a
Oh yes, okay, yeah, that's a good idea. This is meet someone new because I think you would have
yeah.
heard about this guy but didn't ever
I've not
interact with
actually
him.
met him. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, and I'm having trouble finding the move.
it's in
Um,
reputation moves.
oh,
Meet
okay.
someone important.
Hmm.
Meet someone important.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And
So the meet someone important roll. You are rolling with reputation for your faction now
yeah.
because there's three of you. What we actually do for this is we add up your respective reputations for the denizens.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And
All
so
right.
what that means is like, let's imagine you have a +2, but you're with someone who has a -2, right? We can
Yeah.
imagine that that would produce a different outcome than, but
Right.
so
Well,
for,
I've got +1 with denizens,
uh-huh,
but I think that's the only
Yeah.
modifier in the group.
Yeah, I'm
uh,
I'm close to getting some. I've got some
yeah,
notoriety with them, but not
okay,
Same.
enough.
right. So
Same here.
so the three of you together are rolling +1 then, 2d6 plus
Okay.
1.
All right. So I got an 8 plus 1 is 9.
Okay. So in this case, you can pick one of the following two options. You've heard stories, ask a question about them, and the GM will tell you one story you've heard about them or their interests as an answer. Or you
Okay.
can choose that they've heard something in your favor, take +1 forward when you first try to play up your connection with them and their faction.
I'm going to take that +1 forward.
Okay. So, so as soon as you come in and you close the door, there's a moment where he's looking at you like, what's going on here? And then he sees fox, capybara, turtle. Are you?
Yes, we are. Pleased to meet you, Mr. Everly.
Huh.
I'm Lancelot Vent. Don't use that name too much around. You know how things are with the moles.
Huh. Well,
But
yeah. He
so
gestures that he has got stacks of paperwork on his desk that I want to give you all a mental picture. And so what I want to suggest is if you gave a 6-year-old a desk full of paperwork and told them to organize it carefully.
Oh, geez.
Now, I don't want to be too dismissive of Johann here. You know that you know him by reputation that he is an expert when it comes to the refining of iron ore into iron and the production thereof.
and he probably works kind of on a one-to-one basis with the people who work with him.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
looks
he
like
trusts them
this
and-
kind of stuff is not his bag.
Right, right. So he says, I am here to help you with some of your problems. My friend Nigel over here is an expert with paper.
Oh yeah.
And I'll wager that an afternoon with his help in your office would be a big help for you dealing with the duchy.
Well, I mean, I sure could use some help with all this paperwork. It's kind of a hassle, if you ask me. I mean, look, the duchy came in here pretty fast. I mean, they've just got 1 million people. There's nothing we're gonna do about that. But at the very least, they have let us keep operating the way we have been. You know, we still gets us food on our tables, so to speak. So I've not minded that part of it, but they also want me to fill out all this stuff. So that's definitely
Right.
been my biggest problem lately.
So, on an informal basis, because contracts and all that, definitely not the kind of the way people like you and I do business.
I've had my fill of contracts, believe me.
Right. So, just on an informal basis, under the table, you know what I mean. My friend Nigel here is going to help you out with your paperwork. Now, if you'll permit, we can also have my friend Clem here, who is an expert with machines. I must say he is, well, if you recall how things went with the noodle incident, you probably know what I'm talking about.
Well, I saw one of those devices afterwards, and, I have to say, for something that was obviously set up in a few minutes, I was pretty impressed.
Right.
Why,
So,
thank you.
if you've got a few jobs around the place, we can set him to work. And as a cover for the in case the moles are asking questions about why there's strangers working in your offices, and perhaps make things run a little smoother for you today. What do you say?
Well, I don't see a downside yet. With, I guess, just the caveat that maybe you don't tell those guards out there who you are.
You can guarantee that that's not going to happen.
All right, then.
Now then.
And it's like, believe me, this will be a big load off my shoulders because, the duchy is sending someone in to check out the operation of this place, and I was thinking I was going to have to do all of this myself, gesturing to the table, between now and then, and that's frankly a nightmare.
Well, let's see what. Let's not let any time go wasted.
Okay.
What
So
do you know?
this
What
entire
the,
time, Nigel has been eyeing the paperwork. It's like,
Just
yeah, almost
like a
twitching.
dog staring at a plate. Like just as a like something that I think many dogs will do, but like he's watching. My dog will watch me eat, and then if I stop eating but I still have food on my plate and I'm distracted doing something else, he will bark at me because there's food right there. And if I'm not going to eat it, then obviously I should give it to him. And so I can imagine Nigel's looking at all this paperwork that he could have just handed to you already, but he's not. He's still talking when he's still just the papers being there, not being filled out. Anyway.
Yes, he's almost twitching.
You've triggered him.
Yeah. Clem, you were about to ask something.
yeah, Clement says. So, do you know what the big wig's coming to look for, or what has the duchy been asking of you since they've arrived?
Well, they said just keep making as much iron as you can, and they're going to come and check out the place just to see it for themselves. I guess because they figure they own it now, and I mean, I guess I'm not. Who am I to tell them they're wrong at this point? But yeah, here I got this. He's digging through. He's like, I got this letter. They just said they want to come by and check out the place. They're sending someone. Let's see, and he's digging through all the papers. While I look there, my nose, yeah,
And Nigel is
okay,
stealing them as he goes through.
yeah, no, yeah, and so yeah, he
Moves
says
up to the side.
they're sending
Nigel will
someone
take
who
him.
I guess reports to someone called the Duchess of Mud, and I think that that's actually something you all might have heard of. Is that the Duchess of Mud is one of the people on like the Grand Duchy's like high parliament is the Duchess of Mud is someone high up.
Oh,
So and he says, so yeah, I mean, I guess they just wanted to check it out. But yeah, I mean, if you want to, I mean, I guess I'll hang out here because you might have questions for me. But if you want to take this off my hands, I'm happy for it.
Oh,
Nigel, I will absolutely love to have you here because I plan to not only organize it, but show you how I organize it to hopefully make it easier for you to continue being organized.
Yeah, the face journey you get on this poor fox is a little bit of like, oh, but then a little bit of a, yeah, probably it's yes, yeah, please, thank you, I would appreciate that.
right
Well,
now,
the problem is not going to go away tomorrow, is it?
Yeah, so I'm sorry, did we cut you off again, Clem? Were you asking?
no,
Sorry.
no.
Okay.
He's just waiting for because at this point it seems like Nigel's just chomping at the bit.
Yeah.
let's leave them to their work. Come on,
Okay.
Clem.
Yeah. So he goes to the door with you and with Lancelot and Clem, and kind of opens the door and leans out to the guard that's there, saying, "These two are part of a special repair detail, so they're going to be just checking things over for wear and tear and doing maintenance where needed. So that's what they're going to be doing. Don't worry about it. They got my permission."
All right.
And the guard turns a sweaty mole face over and just looks like his interior monologue is, I've got 2 more hours until my shift is done.
Mood.
Yeah. But in any case, they seem to be okay with that. So Nigel, I assume you're spending the next little bit here, starting to figure out what sort of papers are on this desk. We'll come back to that in a moment. But Lancelot and Clem, what do you actually go to get up to here?
I am looking around for resources that might be useful in sabotage operations.
Okay.
Oh, that is exactly what I was looking for. But I'm specifically looking for blasting caps and inflammable accelerant. Whilst I do
Mhm.
look at the different types of machines and things, because I'm
Sure.
also very fascinated with
Now,
how
it being a smelter and not an actual mine head,
Yeah.
probably not have explosives here.
Hmm.
But that doesn't mean there isn't anything useful here.
Right. Well, there
So,
certainly are a lot of tools like big hammers and casting molds and big tongs that they use for carrying hot things and um, there's places where you see them. They've got some molds. Mostly they're making ingots, but they have a couple of specialty molds
mhm,
made from clay that have been hardened.
mhm.
And so you suspect that that is something that they have the capacity with the appropriate mold to make other things other than ingots. I think are you just kind of looking to see what there is to see, or are you thinking this would be a move situation?
Um, I'm not
I
sure what.
I will say I will actually look at their machinery, see if there is any wear and tear
Yeah.
that does need to be repaired.
But,
Um, yeah, I mean, I think that there's a handful of spots that, but this place does seem to actually be in pretty good repair. Like, there's nothing that strikes you as immediately dangerous. It's more just kind of like, yep, it's probably due for remortaring on this wall or, other sorts of those things. But like, by and large, I think you're reasonably impressed that this is a fairly like it's not the most sophisticated type of setup you've ever seen. It's the technology of it is not the newest, but it seems to be a well produced and well maintained facility of its type.
If we got Jinx over here with the person who set this all up, they probably could make a grand industry.
Well, in particular, the as mentioned before, the bellows are needed to be pumped pretty continuously, in order to maintain these furnaces, and that's a hard job that requires a lot of personnel labor currently, and so that's definitely something that could be made probably more easily done mechanically if you had the right know-how.
Hmm.
But right now, it seems to be employing a number of people doing that job, although it doesn't look like a fun job, really.
yeah. So yeah,
But
while he's having a look around that way, I'm just keeping an eye out and
okay,
making sure that trouble doesn't come our way.
okay. Well, so if either of you or together you wanted to do a read a tense situation, we could. But right now, it doesn't seem especially tense right at the moment. I think
Oh, yeah.
the
Okay.
guards having been told nominally that you're allowed to be there don't seem very interested in hassling you
Right.
about it.
Right. All right.
It's too
So
hot in there.
yeah. And um, I can't think of anything more to do here. We've had a look around. It
Well,
probably
certainly
isn't
right
that-
now you're kind of waiting on hearing from Nigel about getting a bit more
Oh,
information.
he's probably going to be there for a while. It looked like it was
Yeah.
more than just 15 minutes work.
Yeah,
Um,
well, for sure.
so,
Especially because
so
it's one thing to just kind of, if you were able to just go through the papers and then be done, that would be one thing. But if you're actually helping him do the paperwork, that's another thing
yeah.
entirely.
So I will pat Clem on the back, and then when I realize that he probably can't feel that, pat him on the back of the head, and say, I'm going to go check back with the others, let them know things went smoothly here. Um, when you and Nigel are done, meet us back at the rendezvous point. All right.
Oh, that's fine.
All right. So I'm going to head back to the rendezvous point.
Okay. So, Clem, you certainly are able to make yourself useful. And I think you are able to see that, like, there are a lot of useful tools that could be had here potentially, and that sort of thing. But In the meantime, Nigel, you are, getting a sense of all of this paperwork in here. And hold on just a moment. Looking at you have the search the records move.
Yes.
So what I would suggest is you can do that move here, but there's also going to be a handful of things based on your result that I might tell you otherwise. It's gonna because yeah, just go ahead and make your move, which is you roll with cunning to search the records.
Oh, that is a 7.
Okay, yeah.
Just
So,
barely success.
yeah. So what that means is, so on a hit, you discover evidence of secrets. And the GM would tell you who would pay for that information, is the way it's strictly speaking written. But what I think you determine is that the paperwork, by and large, is it's not surrealistically obtuse, but it is realistically obtuse, if you follow me. Like we're not talking Brazil, the movie here. It's not. The paperwork is reasonable in the sense that you're able to make sense of it. It is asking for reasonable information, but it is very detailed. It's asking for a lot of granular information in a way that Johann is probably not used to reporting this stuff to anybody, right?
It probably has like lookup tables and
Yeah.
refer to Rule
Exactly.
7 subsection B and there's other things,
Right.
and
So
they probably delivered some books with instructions and things, and
yeah.
yeah.
So Johann is definitely, he tells you, I'm basically used to people can see how much iron we put out and they can tell if it's good iron or not. And if we put out lots of good iron, then we did a good job.
Yes,
And
so
his
she
gesture
does
saw
like,
that paperwork. It's like they're asking me to report the 10-minute interval temperature change of blast furnace number 2 on Wednesday. We don't usually track that. We just kind of look at it and know if it's right or not. And we wouldn't, if it started to get too cold, we would warm it up. And if it started to get too warm, we would cool it down. We don't write it down.
yes.
And so there's a lot of that kind of thing. But I think what you gather looking through this is that a lot of this paperwork does seem to be designed to produce, for someone who understands the paperwork, a fairly thorough and detailed description of the operations of the refinery, how it works, what's their process, what's their quality control, how do they operate it in a detailed way. So that is what the paperwork is, right? Like it's not trying to do something else. But that, along with this letter that he's got, you read through the letter, and I think you pick up on some nuance that seems to have escaped Johann. The way he describes it is they want him to keep making iron, and they're going to send someone important to come check on him. And he wants to have all his paperwork done by then if he can. And so, because he wants them to think he's doing a good job, right? But I think you read between the lines a little bit to realize this is much more, this inspection is a lot less about, oh, we're just going to come and check on you, see how you're doing. And it's a much more like, we're going to evaluate the efficiency and productivity of your facility so that we can determine whether we want to continue its operation as it currently stands or make some
replace
changes.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Or, and I think you get this, just little hints of this. You realize in a couple of the fine print sections of some of these forms that these are forms that were adapted from forms that are presumably filled out at other iron refineries within the duchy. which makes you think they might also be considering whether it would be more cost effective for them to just ship the iron through their tunnels to their own refineries instead of continuing to use this one at all.
Ah,
Now,
yes.
it seems like your impression, looking at all this paperwork, is that this person coming through, and you see that they are a representative of the Duchess of Mud, is a person named Wallace Footy, and they're going to be making a report, and you gather that the contents of their report are likely to determine between those three outcomes, namely things continue as they are, the refinery continues to operate with someone else in charge, or they decide to just shut it down altogether and send the iron elsewhere. He seems to be under the impression that it's kind of like, we're just coming to check in on you so we can say we saw it.
Okay. Well, one thing I would definitely want to make clear to Johan is what the purpose of the visit actually is.
And
Yes.
it also, I got an impression. I just want to make sure it was clear that that if he filled this out in completion, it would also make it really easy to replace him.
Yeah. Yeah. So certainly, if they wanted to replace him with someone else, knowing all of this detail would help them to, transfer the management of the facility with minimum of disruption, with having all of this information documented.
Yeah.
But
and
that
not having
said-
all that information documented,
But
also an excuse.
well, right. You see, like that's the catch-22 of it, is that if he proves unable to handle the level of documentation they require, that's a reason to replace him. So it's that said, I think you also kind of, you're not the expert, Nigel, but this is your understanding is that this is a reasonably efficient and productive refinery. So it's not a given that they're definitely going to make a change. They might feel like it's all fine. But it sounds like it's going to be the opinion of this Wallace Footy character who makes that determination ultimately.
Yeah.
And for a fact that the decision will be made on the basis of what Wallace Footy thinks is best for the Grand Duchy, period.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Okay. Well, looking over all this, I do have some bad news from what I've observed.
What do you mean?
All the detail they ask for seems to be so they know exactly how you refine your iron.
Well, I guess, yeah, right? That's what it says.
Because if they know how you do it, they might see fit to replace you.
Well, why would they replace me?
They might feel that someone else could be more efficient, ask less questions, make less demands.
Okay. Well, what can I do? They said I need to do the paperwork.
Yes. Perhaps.
Can I make an out of character suggestion?
Sure.
Fill out the methodology wrong. So if somebody did try to come and use the smelter, they'd have a hard time of it. But report the productivity correctly because it is a productive place.
Well, my thought in out of character is that maybe fill out the methodology, but do it differently than like not give degrees, but give like some measurement of the color of the furnace. So
I
it's
don't think that's going to
so
be, that's
yeah.
not going to be acceptable to them.
Well, I think if you suggest anything about doing, like saying it wrong, he's going to say, well, what? But I mean, like, whoever made these forms knows the right questions to ask. Like, I'm not used to tracking all of this stuff on paper, but like, they're asking about the temperature and the airflow and the input and output. I mean, if we say it wrong and they show it to someone who actually knows how to do it, they might know that we messed it up on purpose.
Yeah, that and would you know a different way of describing it that to someone who is not knowledgeable would
I mean,
find confusing?
I I don't know. I mean, I feel like like what I want them to do is to not replace me. So, I mean, I have to like show them that like I mean, if I do something tricky, like isn't that just going to be a reason for them to replace me? I mean, we do a good, we run a good shop here. I mean, I'm not used to this part, but I mean, I think we
That
just
is
have.
that is obvious. You are doing good at making iron. And
Maybe that's what you play on though. At a character, maybe
yeah,
that's what you play on is say, hey, look, I'm not used to tracking all of this stuff. We don't have the infrastructure yet to handle the questions you're asking. I can make a good guess, but
Yeah,
So,
that's going to get them replaced.
well, I
well,
think so. I want to suggest that with your knowledge, Nigel, hang on. Let's see. You have the lore master um, feature as well, right? And so you can
yes,
consult your knowledge to understand a political conflict.
yeah. See
And
if
if you want,
that'll.
you can roll
Yeah.
with cunning, and I'll maybe give you some of my thoughts.
I don't think I get that. It's
No.
only 5.
Okay. All right. So let's see. On a miss,
Something about the
some.
situation doesn't fit the history.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that what you're surprised by here is that there seems to be any kind of option at all. Like, you feel like what's usually happening with the duchy, as far as you understand, is that they usually, especially for something that's like an important resource like this, they just come in and take it over, period. They would, if they knew they were invading a place with an iron refinery, they wouldn't tell the existing person to keep doing it and then evaluate them later. They would just bring someone in, shut down the place until they can get it started up again under their leadership. So the fact that this represents a change in the way they've been doing things. So you're not sure what they're looking for. But I think what it comes down to, what I think you can conclude here is I'm not telling you what you should tell him because for one thing, he's in a tight spot. It's a little bit of a damned if you do, damned if you don't sort of situation. But I think what's clear to you, based on that letter, is that no matter what Johann does, it's all going to come down to what is in Wallace's report. So ultimately, the decision will be made based on this guy's report. Because
Perhaps the
he is
key
going to
is
report
not.
back to the parliament, and that's where the decision will be made.
Yeah. Perhaps the key is not in the paperwork we have here, but the paperwork of the visitor. You, you know, to be completely honest, the duchy would normally come in and just put someone in your place that's loyal to them.
Well,
I
I mean, you know,
They might
like
be running short.
you know that I welcomed you and your friend in. And I was pleased with the way that you all some of the stuff that you all got up to. I don't even know the half of it, but like I'm not happy the Dutchies here. Like they're the one making all this mess. But I mean, from what you're saying, it sounds like what I got to do is kiss up to this Wallace fella.
Perhaps not you that has to do the kissing up. I believe Lancelot, the the foxy fellow that was just here,
Hmm.
would be better at doing so.
All right. Well, I mean, I think I think I have to say, like right now, if you can just help me fill out this paperwork like proper, I would sure use any help that you can offer me in terms of how to make that guy's report. Tell him to keep me around. I mean,
Yes,
I got kids to feed.
of course. That is very, very reasonable, and would show him organizational techniques.
Yeah. All right. So I think we can imagine like a quick montage of, you know, alphabetization. You know, in pile and out
Chronological
pile.
organization.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, yeah, we can imagine that you spend a few more hours helping with that and making a lot of progress on that stuff, helping him read the forms and understand what it's asking for and everything. Meanwhile, Clem, you're helping just do maintenance and getting a sense of how this place is run, and also seeing that there are guards here, but it seems like they, in particular the ones inside, don't especially enjoy the appointment. They're not paying careful attention. They don't like it in there, and you gather that they're mostly just there in case something bizarre were to happen. They would run and tell somebody else.
So, would there be a way for me to piecemeal together, having looked at the two different plow machines, and they're because one was the pedal driven, or they both were automated, but one was the pedal driven. Would there be a way to maybe rig up something that would allow them to, instead of having to have a team of people run the bellows, it could be, say, one or two people on like a pedal or some sort of crank, so that they wouldn't all have to be doing it? Because in my brain, I keep seeing that scene from Princess Mononoke where Ashitaka goes to the
Yeah.
bellows, and they're just all standing there, like
Uh huh. Yeah.
working the bellows.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well. So you do have a move called jury rig, which is where you create a makeshift device on the fly. Is that something you would want to try?
yes, I would like to try to see if I can help improve this for them a little bit.
Okay.
Because, and also, and let's be fair, if this gets to that point, then there's more hands to do other things and
Mm-hmm.
help the place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this sounds like a jury rig move, which means that you would roll that with cunning.
Alrighty. Okay, that's not bad. That's an 8.
Okay. So on a hit, you create a device that works once and then breaks. So I think what happens is, well, but I mean that's not nothing, right? Like that's it's prototyping, skunk works. But in any case, though, what happens is you get a few ideas. You're watching them operate the bellows, and then you start assembling various bits and pieces from scrap and develop kind of a gearing mechanism that is saving up energy from something. And if you want to describe your version of the machine, I don't want to take that away from you.
Well, it is a bellow, so there is hot air being extruded somewhere, and so I've basically made a steampunk gearworks to
Nice.
try to pump the bellows as it goes, kind of almost like a perpetual engine machine, except steam.
Yeah. So I think what happens is that some of the workers there are a little bit like concerned, like, what are you doing? You're gonna mess something up. You're gonna break something. But okay, I mean, I guess we'll try it. But then you've put together this little device, and they're like, well, I want to see what that does. And sure enough, as you kind of start it up, it's pop, 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 and it's puffing out the steam. And it really seems like it's working, and everyone kind of starts going, well, yeah, hey, that looks great. Great. And then all of a sudden, and then it kind of melts into a little slag. And it's like, and they're like, oh well, that was pretty cool though. I think then, Clem, as you're doing that, there's a moment though where you kind of glance around, and one of those moles kind of peering over at you.
I don't like that scrutiny. Well, I'm gonna take my blueprints and Nigel, I think we should probably head back.
Yeah.
As I click, clunk, going
I think,
into the office.
I think it conveniently works out that Nigel is about done at that point too. So the two of you can head out together. So Lancelot, you, Arbin, and Peppa would have probably reunited before Clem and
and I report that everything went smoothly at the smelter. We got Nigel in to have a look at the paperwork.
Good.
Got Clem in to look at their operations, get some information there. I think that went well. And hopefully Nigel will think to bring back some blanks and things that we can use for counterfeiting later. But I didn't say anything in front of anybody, so maybe he didn't. I hope he remembered why I brought him there in the first place. But in any case, everything went well with me. How about you guys?
Oh, yeah. That was a very productive flyover.
Very productive.
Right.
Yeah. So you remember the vents on the roof of the longhouse?
Oh yeah. The one
Yeah.
the flies kept coming in and out of.
Yeah, that's still there.
Oh wow, great.
So
Now all we have to do is figure out a way to get on the roof without being seen.
And Peppa will kind of, flap her feathers in his face, and wiggle her feathers in his nose.
Yeah. But for those who can't fly, I did notice that lots of the denizens were going in and out of the longhouse. I mean, we would need paperwork, but it's not as secure as you think it is. It's not a hard point. We can work our way in.
I think just for logistical purposes, let's go ahead and say everyone's there, so you can all.
Okay, yeah, so we have to repeat.
Okay. Okay.
I also scouted our way out of Iron Vein. Why are we going Heim? Out of it must be the Duchy of Provost. Out of Iron Vein, should things go completely wrong, I think we should probably go out through the forest or down to the river, although you have problems with the river folk, Clem, as I recall.
Well, it's not problems. Just, I'd like to avoid them, if at all possible. Though,
Okay.
If need be, I'm
But
sure we could find transport if need be.
Yeah.
if need be, and I'll explain the about the captain, the marshal, and the brigadier as persons of interest, capital P, capital I.
Right.
Well, well, we also know that the person coming in to inspect is higher up than they are because they answer directly to the Duchess of Mud.
Okay, so we have some potential targets for mischief.
Well, I, I would hesitate to go as far as assassination,
Whoa!
just because it would um, tend to fall harder on the people who live here if something like that were to happen. Plus, they're probably going to be well guarded, and I'm not sure that we are in a much of a position to physically
No,
overcome.
no, no, no. But I meant mischief in a general sense. I did not necessarily jump
Okay.
to killing them. I mean, these are the individuals who,
Right there,
if we have,
yes.
if they're striking at Sundell, these are the individuals who are in charge of that effort, and hampering
Yes.
their efforts is why we're here.
Right. So more in the order of humiliating them or
Yeah, getting
dis.
getting them recalled because they're seen as incompetent is entirely in bounds, and that would
Yes.
slow down the
Yes.
duchy's efforts if they can't be seen to handle a few vagabonds.
Well, yeah, as Lancelot learned, the mayor who was in charge when you all did the noodle incident was apparently recalled.
Yeah.
So
Yes, and one thing I would like to do, if at all possible, is to you know either convince this Wallace individual to write a good report or write a good report in his name. You know, keep Johann in his position. He is very skilled, even if paperwork is not his forte.
Yeah.
I think I have an idea of how to help. I tried to make something to make the bellows more efficient without having to use an entire team of guys to run the bellows. It worked for a while,
Hmm.
but the mole guards, having not shown interest in anything we were doing up until that point, were very interested in my creation. So if I could have some time to work on my blueprints and we get it built, he could take credit for that, and it would also help improve the functionality of the refinery, which
Um,
would help in getting a better report.
yeah. On that note, this is an example of something that you could potentially use your toolbox move for, because the jury rig is explicitly when you do something on the fly, right? But with your toolbox move, when you open up your toolkit and dedicate yourself to making a thing or getting to the bottom of something, that's I would give you some conditions that so basically what we could do in this context is if you wanted to make a version of that thing that wouldn't break right away, I would give you some things that you would need to do in order to accomplish that. But then if you accomplish those things, you can make it.
Yeah, sure thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I was hoping for because I figured I could use jury rigging as kind of like the
Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like let's see if this is actually plausible.
Yeah.
Okay, now I got these blueprints. Let's start working on this in a more concrete sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So I think in order to make the version of your machine that would last longer but still be efficient for the bellows, you would need um, you would need stronger metal fittings for it, which you think could potentially, like, if you made some molds for those, you could you could cast them with the other equipment that they have there, but you would need to make the mold. So like what it would need to be shaped like, but you need to have the mold made, and then you would have to cast the parts for it. And then I think you also need you need a bunch of like thin but tough like leather hide to be kind of like almost like a bellow balloon sort of material. And so that's something you could probably buy from someone who sells various things, like perhaps
Would
Riverboat Company.
would yeah, I was just gonna say, would would sail material be tough enough?
Yeah, potentially. I think you think what you need is something to be like this expansion bellow, and you just used cloth when you did your makeshift one, and that wasn't strong enough. So you need something tougher. So you think like sail canvas or like thin flexible leather could either of those could do it.
Okay. Lancelot, I'm
Yes.
I'm gonna need your foxy self to assist me.
Okay.
So, as you all know, I don't necessarily want to go near the Riverfolk Company,
Mm-hmm.
but I need some leather canvas or leather, or basically, I need to be able to make a balloon, something to catch the hot air and steam from the bellows.
Right.
Y-
I'm having a hard time connecting this to our goal here. Are we
Because
trying to improve the performance so that
he doesn't,
he doesn't
he,
get replaced?
yes, because the last person that got replaced never came back,
Hmm.
the mayor.
Now, bear in
Well,
mind, in
the
this context, that person who got replaced and never came back was a mole, so he might
yeah,
have
he
just
was a
gotten
member
called
of the
home.
Dookie,
Yeah.
Yeah,
so the Duchy.
yeah. And plus,
So I don't think that
and if
I
this,
mean,
and if
it's
this place,
right.
tangential.
yeah,
I
and if
think
this
it's a bit of
place,
a I think it's a bit of a tangent. We don't want I agree that we don't want him to be replaced. I think that for the time being, your help with his paperwork is going to be at least a help in that regard, because he definitely would have been replaced before Nigel got involved. And I think that having an innovative addition to the working of the smelter, if it actually makes a big difference, could be a big help to the duchy overall. If they say, oh, hey, there's this great invention, let's bring it to the rest of the duchy so that we can increase iron production by 20% and then invade all the clearings. No, I don't think so. If it makes a difference, then it would, if it makes a significant difference, it would be overall long term a bad thing.
well,
So,
generally nothing I make
well,
lasts long term.
but I think that making sure that his operation runs smoothly is good. Making it run superbly is probably not a good idea.
This this device won't increase or decrease the duchy's expansion. You have to realize, from what Nigel's found out, they'll either shut this place down and say screw it and do it anyway, or they'll be like, "Oh, this place runs okay. We're still going to take it over though." Like the this one place doesn't make or break the duchy's expansion at all.
No,
They,
but what I'm saying is, if you create a new way of running a smelter that the duchy can implement elsewhere, it absolutely will help them. So I don't think that's a good idea.
So
I don't think it's a good idea.
let's
I,
come from a different way to ask Clement this. Could your invention be duplicated?
I don't see how it couldn't be.
if they had the right engineers, I mean,
And we
I'm
know they
sure.
have engineers.
Right.
I'm sure Jinx could definitely do it, seeing as I'm working off Jinx's the knowledge I gained from
Okay.
Jinx.
While we want to keep him as head of this smelter, we don't want to improve the duchy's tactical and logistical material position. There's a fine line between having him fired and giving the duchy too much material. We want to keep him in his job because that's the best possible outcome. But we don't want to give the duchy a strategic advantage, if that makes sense.
To be honest, how is it a strategic advantage when the Marquisate already has advanced technology beyond them anyway?
Right. I want to posit an idea, and this may or may not be it. Nigel, you said that them keeping him here is actually out of the norm
Yes,
for the way the Grand Duchy operates usually. Could it be
yes.
possible that the ore smelted, or the ore that's smelted in this refinery, is actually higher quality than the Grand Duchy is uh, currently capable of producing, and so that's why they want all this detail?
I
Um, that's the only reason that I can think of to keep him in long term, is because they're trying to learn how he does his process so that then they can replicate it in
I don't
their own
believe.
smelteries.
We don't know why they haven't just immediately replaced it.
Well,
Either way,
Hello.
that was just my thought. Either way, soiling confusion and chaos in the Grand Duchy's thing. I don't think that the smeltery is really where. I mean, that can be one angle that we do, but how is the smeltery going to? I mean, it'll give us a view on their paperwork and how they write it, but
Yeah.
how is that going to help us sow confusion in the Grand Duchy?
Well, that's what I was going to get to was, Nigel, did you bring back any examples of their paperwork of forms and things that we can use?
Mhm.
I'm thinking that their bureaucracy is their strength, but also their weakness, and we might be able to bollocks things up very peacefully just by introducing the right papers in the right places.
Right.
Um, yeah, so you definitely were able to, like, some of the forms that got filled out incorrectly, it was easy enough to say, well, we need a new copy of that, put the other one in my pocket, that sort of thing. Now, most of the forms that he had there were pretty specific to that operation, but you certainly have a much better handle on how they do that sort of thing now.
I I believe the point that uh, that's to be made about them not replacing Johan immediately is they might be suffering a personnel shortage.
Especially if they've been expanding recently.
Yes, might they might be short on qualified qualified people to run a smelter.
Or they may have just realized that moles aren't necessarily the best at everything, and that their whole that taking over by leaving people in charge might be just more efficient, just in terms of uh, denizen resources.
also,
But
we might be having another situation with that carrot and the stick because they came in, left, and came back. And the second time, they ran into more resistance, right? So
Mhm.
maybe this is their way of going towards goodwill
mm,
Keeping
because
him in the position.
because he is one of the key denizen leaders here in town.
Um, I think that having looked at the paperwork, Nigel, especially that letter, um, you think that Johann's inexperience with more nuanced political matters are what led him to not read between the lines there. But your impression coming through there was that this was not like a friendly, we're giving you the opportunity to show that you can, be most valuable in your current position. It was more like, we are going to evaluate whether you may need to be replaced. That sort of thing.
Yes, I don't think it's indicative of a change in operation.
And I think in general, although bear in mind individuals can vary, your impression, all of you, of the duchy is that generally speaking, they come in promising everyone in town, oh, it'll be so great when you see how good life can be when you follow all our rules and do exactly what we say.
But they're short on delivery.
Well,
Sure.
yeah. So, well, especially there's a lot of, well, of course, we're in a very difficult transitional period right now, but
Yeah.
Just you wait.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in any case, yeah, a lot of the answers to some of these questions you suspect are probably in the more formal paperwork that they are working on. The political officials here in town are working on.
Well,
Yeah.
I think this is a good first step. I think we need more information in order to go on. So I'd like to plan for our next event to have a look around the Longhouse, perhaps after dark.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I think, our next job. And we probably also want to have a look around, just around the town, around the clearing after dark, to see like where townsfolk are gathering socially, because their primary social place is closed. That doesn't mean they've stopped socializing.
Mm-hmm.
So it may be useful to find out where they are and just listen to what they have to say and learn some more that way. Since I am about as sneaky as a rock falling on your toe, I was thinking that I would take that task for this evening, and like I said, try and find out where people are socializing. And some of you folk might sneak into the Longhouse.
Like, say, through the roof, Pepper, perhaps? Those of us who can fly might be best tasked with that sort of
Yes.
approach. So I think Peppa and I might want to go to the Longhouse through the top.
Okay.
If you're willing to team up again.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I'm glad you two can fly, because being off the ground isn't very good for me.
Yes, and I think going in through the front door for inquiries of general paperwork things might be more of my speed.
Well, Denzins are going in and out, so you just pretend to be one of them.
Yes.
See what penetrate the bureaucracy.
Yes.
All right. Well, I think right now you're getting into the late afternoon, early evening, and so I think certainly it sounds like there's a plan for some denizens, some of you all to wait until dark to do your explorations, but perhaps we will find out next week. Well, excuse me, next session. I apologize, there will be no episode on the 30th because I will be returning from visiting the Grand Canyon.
Oh, man!
Yeah. But in 2 weeks, we will return to break into a longhouse to try to get more of the dirt on the duchy, so to speak. And we'll figure out what happens next week, or excuse me, next session on so many levels.
So many.
Wait,
Levels,
we have
yay!
intercession moves.
Oh, you're right. Yes.
Oh yeah,
you're
right. Session moves.
Session
moves.
moves.
Yes.
Does anybody have a drive that they completed? The answer is yes. because
Yes.
you arrived at a new clearing.
Yep.
So I know
I
Yep.
have
a
that
few of
one.
you have
I
that
have
one.
that one.
Yep.
Yes.
That seemed like an easy choice.
Well, hey, like,
Well, vagabonds. Yeah.
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 the system is the system. So,
Hmm.
yeah. So I think if you had one of those as as one of your drives, you can certainly mark an advancement for that. Does anyone have any other drives that you think you accomplished this time?
Yeah. I don't I don't know if big enough, but forging papers for
Um, that's good, but I don't think it's quite enough for an
yeah.
advancement in this context.
Yeah.
Um,
Now
um,
maybe if those papers got same papers got us out of another issue.
yeah.
That
Now,
could be a
one thing though that, for example, something like making the machine that Clem is talking about, like improving the refinery's capabilities, obviously it's a bit of a fraught subject for a lot of reasons that you all discussed, but that would be an example of something that might satisfy a development drive, right?
yeah.
Which is contribute to a lasting development or improvement to an entire clearing.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to give examples of what I think
Yeah.
that would mean. But okay, so if no one else has any others, good job for those of you who have that one. You can have an advancement, and then the session moves. Right there we go. You can also make any of those session changes as suggested. So you can replace a drive with a new drive, replace a nature with a new nature, or replace a connection with a new connection. And these are meant to reflect things that you're determined to do. So, feel free to choose those and say them if you know what they are. Otherwise, you can make them in the meantime.
Yeah, I need
I
to think about it.
think I'm going to take parkour.
Okay, that's a fun.
And parkour is when you dash your way through a chaotic scene or fight, roll with finesse.
Oh, that'd
And
be
so
useful.
that spend your hold 1 for 1 to dash to something with insight and reach without being stopped, or dash away from something nearby without being stopped.
Yeah,
So yes,
yeah, I like
think
that.
I think that's definitely Peppa's speed.
Great. All right. Does anyone else have anything, or I think we can? Thank you everybody for listening and or watching. We will be back, as previously mentioned, in 2 weeks for more route adventure on so many levels.
So,
Yay!